Good late Tuesday, early Wednesday meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving a look at that map across the region. You do see some storm acts in there toward the west of our covered area. Some of that will try to hold together toward those western zones of the viewing circle, but not too big of a deal overall. It doesn't seem because it is weakening some. Can't run a strong storm there. You see a marginal risk in the dark green. That is as we look ahead toward later in on that Wednesday as we're tracking things. So just I'll make sure you're paying attention here. It's kind of a pattern that's a little more enhanced in terms of the severe threat than you generally see with the summertime storms, but we still don't have a whole bunch of coverage of them. So it's kind of an interesting thing. When I say enhanced, I mean, you may get a few of these storms to be, on the nastier side. We saw some of that further up this north of our area on that Tuesday. We were looking at southeast Alabama as well. I mean, it's still not, it's marginal risk overall. Don't confuse my wording there. Just a little bit elevated from, what the strength of these could be, because some of these, I know we're looking up into word like North Georgia. There was actually some spin in some of the activity there, some tornadic activity in the North Georgia there on that Tuesday. So that's what I mean by that. But its chances still are not that high. We didn't even have a severe thunderstorm watch toward Albany. But that was kind of just a sign of things that we're tracking toward the west. It ended up not really holding together, that accent, in toward our coverage zone at least. So that was good. We were looking toward Dothan there and the like. We did have a severe thunderstorm warning for rural southwestern Flagler, but we just posted about that on Facebook and on Twitter/X because it wasn't enough to really come on for that a weekend before it moved further across the county and not being something that was severe. It was something that was more of a Volusia County story when we had some warning accident and play, more population just outside of our covered area in our 62 counties. So you do see the storminess, you see some lightning, you might be seeing some of that in the sky there. If you're looking to the west from the Tallahassee, Albany area, give or take. Maybe if you look to the east, you might see a little bit of that stuff toward the Atlantic too, but that'd be less likely. That's probably kind of getting further away, too far away to really see at this point. Not enough lightning production like what you might see if you're looking up toward the west and some of the areas further off west. So that's kind of the storyline there. But as we're tracking things, I mean, these temperatures are pretty warm as we're looking here, a little bit warmer than what you would expect this time of year for this time of night. We are going to be above average in terms of those lows here. In the short term, but we're actually going to get below average a little bit as we look ahead. Some cool air trying to filter in. So that'll be intriguing to see. But you do see some of the storminess out here as we're looking toward the Florida Panhandle areas there, west of the Peniac Springs, Fort Walton Beach, and the like there. I know. I just got to watch out for rip currents and the like in some of these instances too, as people going to the beaches and the like here is so important. This time of year, folks maybe not familiar with the water, coming across the country for vacation, something like that, and then, can encounter some very dangerous waters. But the tornado risk not really around on that Wednesday. I mean, you can't rule out something quickly spinning up. Hail though is more toward the west as well, but that wind risk just came out here a few minutes ago. The latest outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, but that wind risk is there to some degree, and that's what we're watching for. A few storms that get to that 60-mile-an-hour gust potential with damaging criteria being noted. So watch for that as we look at the ward areas further up there. You see higher wind risk, and there's even a tornado risk that stands out a little bit there north southwestern Kansas, so like Garden City, Dodge City, the community there of Liberal, and another community there, Meade. As we zoom on in, you see Ashland, Kinsley there, Sublette, Scott City in there. So just kind of giving you guys an idea. There's a chance of some tornadic activity. Not a big deal, not enough to turn the logo red, anything like that here. But we'll watch, obviously. We'll continue to monitor. But I know we do have some thunderstorm watch still lingering out toward areas here around Odessa, but focus toward the east right now, southeast of San Angelo, and they're around the community of Telegraph in Texas. You see a pretty nasty, severe-looking storm there. That's being warned for ping pong ball size here on 60-mile-an-hour wind gust potential. So that's something they're watching in the Lone Star State. I know they had some pretty nasty weather come through late Monday night around the Houston metro area. So that was something they were keeping an eye on there as we're looking at things and the like. I know it's just always important to keep an eye on these situations. Keep an eye here to things. See, there's a slight risk of severe weather around Stephenville, Mineral Wells in Texas there. But that is going to be more for the hail there. As we're tracking things, as we're kind of giving you the latest and scrubbing through this. That's the same with the other slight risk there out toward areas west of Odessa in Texas. You kind of see that slight risk there as well. So marginal risk 1 out of 5. Not, too big of a deal here, but still it is something. We don't always get that. Even when we have the summertime storms really rampant, you don't really get that marginal risk here every day. So it's a little bit different genesis here. We're going to try to have a boundary push on through here to try to give us some cooler air. But that's going to take a little while. I know Friday could be our stormiest day, and that's something we got to focus on in that full forecast. And then we're going to have the hurricane special late Thursday at 10 o'clock or so on all the different platforms. So make sure you tune in. That's going to be late Thursday, 10 p.m. Facebook, KC Cloud Reacts, Cloud Weather, Twitter /X at Cloud KC, YouTube at Cloud Weather, Twitch Cloud Weather, and then cloudweather.com has all the different links to all the sources available. So important to keep that in mind here as we're looking and as we're tracking. But Friday, I know that's a big baseball day in college baseball. FSU, starting off that Tallahassee regional schedule to start about 3 o'clock Eastern time with that first pitch there, and against Bethune-Cookman may have some storms interfere with that as we're kind of looking at things. I know the University of Florida's baseball team, they're going to be going up to the Conway Myrtle Beach area to take on some different teams up there. As East Carolina to start off may end up playing Coastal Carolina. There could be some storms up there as well. So that's a storyline as we're looking at things. I know Northeastern, that university, and then also a Mississippi State. Those are the other two teams in the Tallahassee regional. So, hopefully my Noles can get it done there as we look ahead in the timeline. But the weather could play a role. If I was kind of advising the weather, I would plan for delays on Friday there toward Tallahassee for my Seminoles. And just you would think. Now, I don't want to make too much of a suggestion because it probably end up turning out wrong, but I would kind of go with maybe some of the lesser type of experienced pitchers there toward that Friday. So something to kind of keep in mind for the Seminoles, because you don't want to start Jamie Arnold. I think you'd want to save them, him for Northeastern or Mississippi State on Saturday or Sunday anyway. But on that Friday, you really got to be, thinking be a little weaker team, but also not that. It's about the weather. Could have delays. You don't want to get somebody warmed up and then kind of get caught up there and then really start to run short on pitchers really rapidly because of the weather delays that could happen on that Wednesday. On that Friday, it's not a guarantee, but as we're looking at it, again, it'll be 3 o'clock Friday on the ACC network. I believe it's Lowell Galindo and Devin Travis that are going to be on the call there on the ACC network. So that's going to be Friday at 3 p.m. As we're looking, I'm going to pull up some other information real quick here in the system. If you just bear with me here as we track things and the like. I do kind of want to, get that model guidance showing up here. So it's just important to do that as we kind of look at things and as we track them. I'll go ahead and get there in toward later on in the period. So let's say Friday at 2 p.m. That's not quite as aggressive. Actually, did I go one day too far? Let's see. Okay, no, that's the earlier run. Let's try this run. It's actually not showing quite as much. So you just never know here with the weather. I said it more later in the night, which could affect the later game. But then there's other model runs here. This is early Friday morning, so in storms are in Tallahassee, and the furthest it goes out. I know we don't have, lightning for that. It's the current lightning, the current warning information. I'll turn that off too. But so there's some variability still. Not a guarantee that we'll have disruptions with the weather, but that's something to kind of keep our eyes on here as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. So again, just trying to monitor all that. Another storyline to monitor, the East Pacific there. We have some, acts, and that's an area of interest out there. As we look ahead in the timeline, could end up getting Tropical Storm Alvin to get going. Now that's, in the Pacific, that set of names. Actually, Atlantic, which we may have to watch for sometime here in June, coming up in the Gulf, something like that, based on some very early runs. It's too far out to know if it's going to actually happen, next week or two. But there's a chance we could have Andrea out in the Gulf. We shall see. Hurricane Special late Thursday, 10 o'clock on all the different platforms. So make sure you guys tune in there. But, again, we'll be watching the weather situation around Tallahassee for that regional, and then the Conway, South Carolina regional there, the Myrtle Beach area, as we're looking over there. Coastal Carolina hosting the Florida Gators. This Florida Gator team wasn't quite good enough to make the top 16 there, but they'll be headed up in that direction to take on the East Carolina Pirates on Friday afternoon at noon over on, I believe it's ESPN2. So just important to keep in mind there as we're looking at things. Let me go ahead and pull on up that rainfall forecast here. As we look at next 7 days, we really do need that precipitation here around. We have a little bit of rain around now, but it's still been kind of hit and miss. We don't want the lightning. We need the, more concentrated rain. We don't want flooding, but we need more rain here. You see, the dark blue, only half an inch on average next 7 days. Some areas a little bit more. But that's just average. Some areas aren't going to get this much at all. Other areas will get a little bit more, which we definitely really do need. We had that issue creep up there on Monday on Memorial Day, just south of Bradford County with a fire. And I was going smoke in this direction, even threatened a few homes there in the northern Alachua County. From what I understand from forestry there, if it's in a forestry, they were able to get that under control before anybody was injured, and there was no property damage to any structure, which is great news. But we just got to be really careful because I know you can go to clutter.com/radar for an interactive look at radar when we're not on the air and see where things are popping up. We just don't want, lightning to pop up without too much rain either, because that can just start fires. So we need convection here to get rain, and maybe we can get some lighter rain in here just to kind of wet the ground, because it is still as that latest drought monitor here. It showed last Thursday the drought conditions, still being a concern across parts of the area. I'm normally drawing others here in Florida, down towards southwest Florida, extreme drought there. That is not good at all. But even, abnormally dry and have problems. We'll get another update here this Thursday on that, with the data coming on in. But, abnormally dry still can be an issue here. Again, we won't have a full update late Thursday. But we'll have our hurricane special, so make sure you tune in for that. That'll be in lieu of the formal update, though. We will be on for any severe weather as needed, and if there's severe weather around that time, then of course we can push our hurricane special back a little bit there, depending on what's going on. If we have some warnings, we got to be on for it. Those obviously would take priority, but just kind of keep that in mind. Thursday at 10 p.m. is the Wednesday scheduled hurricane special is going to be streamed there live on all the different platforms: Facebook, there, Twitter, /X, YouTube, and Twitch. So, now, covered area are 62 counties here. You see Bradford County, where I'm at, and watching things. 72 degrees right now here east of Stark, and that is at about, if you're watching live, 1:47 in the morning. But it's a situation here where as we're looking, we're always on for any tornado warning storms in the 62 counties. I was watching stuff. We were looking out toward the west there. As we were looking out toward the west and the north, we had some tornado warnings in North Georgia, some severe thunderstorm warnings in southeast Alabama, and only ended up getting one thunderstorm warning, severe thunderstorm warning in our area on Tuesday. That was for a little bit of Flagler County, so I got pretty lucky in that regard. But won't always get lucky like that. Some days there'll be severe thunderstorm warnings. Tornado warnings are pretty few and far between this time of year, but they're possible in the pattern we're in that something could quickly spin up. That's what I kind of mean, that there is a little bit higher end potential with a, summertime type acts. And I don't mean like, strong tornadoes or anything like that. I know I'm probably confusing you guys a little. It's kind of like a subcategory. In the summertime acts, and it's a little bit, could get a little bit worse than it generally would, but there's still not going to be a whole bunch of coverage. It's not going to be like, severe outbreak or anything like that. There's a chance we don't even get, like you saw on Tuesday, not much to develop our area. We had some warnings towards Central Florida, Southeast Alabama, and just north of our area. I mean, I think it was Wayne County there had some warnings, but pretty nasty area just north of our viewing circle. So, it's just the general idea here, that acts in North Georgia, of course, with the tornado activity. So, there's tornado warning, tornadoes confirmed up there in North Georgia. So that's something you don't generally talk about in the summertime patterns. What I mean, not expecting that, but it can't completely be ruled out something crazy happening like that. Especially with just we had quite a bit of wind damage in Southeast Alabama, cluster. We had some of that on Sunday here, really popping up in our area. By the way, Gainesville they got to 98 degrees there on that Tuesday. That is so toasty there. Their climate report, 95 degrees in Jacksonville and Duval County, 98 there in Gainesville and Alachua County. And in fact, that 98 there, it wasn't a record in Gainesville. The record was 102 back in that very toasty and drier pattern in 2019. The record high. So 98 was the high, but the record was not set. It was 102. And on average, we're not going to be expecting that hot as we're looking. But, Jacksonville there. Got 95. Their record was 100 back in 2019. So not quite that type of heat. But, that pattern didn't have that much humidity, really, compared to what you would generally have. If it was later in the summer and you had 100 or 102, that's hard to obtain anywhere around here. And you would definitely be, more concerned about that humidity in play. I remember that pattern. All the heat to the south, not as much humidity, it was a drier heat. But to the north, we had big tornado outbreaks, like in Ohio on Memorial Day back in 2019, and in areas further back toward the west as well. So, as we go ahead and look here, fog safety, something we'll have to watch out for in some spots on that Wednesday. You always got to watch out for that and be careful. To slow down and give yourself extra time to reach your destination, whether there's advisory in play or not. It doesn't necessarily matter if you get into something localized or smoke. If you have some type of little fire, it gets mixed with the fog. And that smoke, it kind of mixes in. That's a problem there, obviously. Just got to be aware of that. I know leave plenty of room there between you and the vehicle in front of you there as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. So, as we go ahead and see now that planning forecast, 40% chance of rain on that Wednesday, 50% on that Thursday, but it goes up to 60% there on that Friday. As we're looking at things and as we're tracking things there, you see that uptick there with the forecast information overall. So I know it starts to dip back down towards Saturday. That Saturday chance is really for earlier on, so for baseball action like in Tallahassee. Later on, said action will be okay. I'm just talking about early on action, early in day, lingering around, something to that effect. You see the 64 by Sunday morning. It's a little bit cooler than average with the cool air coming in, but it's not going to last too long. The drier is, going to be around a little bit more, but the cooler air, not so much. You see 91, 92 there by Monday, Tuesday of next week. So that's definitely a storyline there as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. So. Again, just trying to give you guys the latest on everything. Again, that hurricane special, Thursday at 10 p.m. So make sure you tune in for that as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. And we'll be watching all the action around our region here. Watching that Doppler and the like here as we look ahead and toward that timeline. It's just so important here to monitor things. So. See a marine warning out there in the Gulf of Mexico right now, Gulf of America. It's the Gulf here, however you want to describe it, as we go ahead and look at things. You see all that lightning there. You can see what's going on. We'll be watching to see if any of that holds together, toward the Apalachicola area and the like, and monitor those trends here. The parameters, let's pull those up here. You see some for the North Supercell Composite instability. We'll watch that. I mean, let's back it up 4 hours and you don't even see it there. So you could try to kind of scrape Apalachicola. I mean, this whole line's going to scrape some of those western counties probably before it starts to fade a little bit more, see a little bit warmer toward like areas there like Destin, 84, Eglin Air Force Base, 83. By the time you get toward like Blountstown, 73, Mariana, 73, Quincy, 73, Tallahassee, 77. So a little bit of the cooler air in play, I would say. Dew point's still high though, so we'll have some convection, but hopefully it's more be some rain that could be helpful more than anything. I don't think it's gonna, really hold together all the way across the area though as rain, but at least it could be a little something. So that's potentially a positive as we're looking at things and as we're tracking. I appreciate everybody tuning in on all the different platforms. Thanks so much for watching here on this Tuesday night, early Wednesday. I think I'm about to wrap things up here. We've covered pretty much everything we need to for tonight. I'll break back in, for severe weather concerns as needed. No severe warnings right now around, that's for sure, but we'll watch, of course, and be on as it is warranted. But as we look ahead toward that late Thursday, 10 p.m., a hurricane special on all the different platforms, and then breaking back in for, necessary severe weather coverage as needed. Of course, if we get a rogue tornado warning, we'll be on immediately. But if it's a severe thunderstorm situation, we'll play it by ear. Generally this time of year, as we start to get more of those type of warnings, and if they're not overwhelming, we'll post about them like that one in Flagler late Tuesday afternoon, evening there. Facebook and Twitter there, posting about that. But if it's something more, concerning to me, based on what I'm seeing on the Doppler radar technology, I'll be on all the different platforms of the live stream to give you the very latest minute-by-minute information to inform and protect you, your friends, and your family on Facebook, there, Twitter /X, YouTube, and Twitch. Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe. As I know, we're just watching things with the Doppler around our region, and just whatever thunder roars, go indoors. When it's, feeling a little too hot for you, I'll make sure you're not being out there in that peak heat, drinking that water there, drinking plenty of it, avoiding that time frame when you really have that sun bearing down on you and the like. So it's important to always keep things in mind if we, in terms of severe weather safety, if we do get a bunch of rain in one spot, remember turn around, don't drown. Hopefully that, doesn't become a storyline too much. We don't want to go from just so dry to so wet real quick. But it does happen from time to time in a few spots, but we're not expecting that, in most spots. In most spots, we're going to still be at a deficit for the rainfall as we look ahead. We really will still need it. Maybe we'll get something tropical, but don't want it to be overwhelming here. Obviously, if we were to get something in a week or 2 or 3, some models are hinting at something in the Gulf, but we got to make sure it doesn't get too strong with the winds. We just really could use really weak tropical area of low pressure with just beneficial rain, but not hanging around too long, just enough to give us like 4 inches or something like that. And, have not much of a tornado throw. We've had stuff like that over the years, but sometimes, you think you're going to get something that's beneficial and ends up being, dangerous with tornadoes, and so maybe gets close to a hurricane or something. So you don't want anything like that. But nothing, immediate concern in the tropics, but we'll be always watching, always tracking, and informing you guys. Have a great night. Stay safe. Be back again late Thursday with another formal update, there as we're looking at things in terms of that hurricane special, I should say, as I'm alluding to that. It's actually not going to be the formal update. It's going to be in lieu of the formal update late Thursday at 10 p.m. on all the different platforms, assuming we're not having to do special weather coverage at that point in time. So Thursday, 10 p.m., hurricane special. Of course, we'll have another formal update next Tuesday. Late Tuesday there of next week. That's the plan, but we'll be on late Thursday this week, 10 p.m. actually, so a little bit earlier than normal, with all the hurricane information you need to plan ahead for that 2025 season. Have a great night, everybody.